Viola slowly opened her eyes and found herself in a medieval castle. Two men stood before her, and one of them addressed her coldly, calling her Viola. He warned that she needed to quickly learn the laws of the winter castle if she wanted to survive. Viola, having just woken up, realized that she was now Viola, reborn in the body of a girl from a short story she had once read. After a few moments, fear and uncertainty enveloped her, but then, like a piercing wind, realization crept into her mind. The mysterious man continued to speak to her like a veteran of the harsh northern lands, explaining to her the inherent laws of the cold kingdom. She felt the tension in the air tighten around her, and his words sounded like ice crystals in the winter cold. Her heart pounded harder, and she realized that her fate was now inextricably bound to this castle, standing like a guardian in the harsh northern kingdom. In front of Viola stood Heroine, the adoptive father, with a contemptuous gaze and sharp facial features that created a shiver. Heroine, masculine and commanding, was central to the family story of Veratu's shadow. The tale of the Veratu family revealed complex relationships, and Viola, unrelated by blood ties, suddenly found herself in the role of the head of the family. Heron's gaze, saturated with contempt, reminded Viola of the inevitable trials that awaited her in the future. The presence of this courageous man expressed severity and uncertainty, emphasizing the challenges ahead. The shadow of unexplored trials seemed to hover over Viola, and she felt that Veratu's destiny contained not only glory, but also dark secrets. Viola, despite the absence of blood ties, suddenly rises to the top of the family hierarchy. Her ascent to this peak of power brings not only the expected glory, but also a sense of boredom as a foreshadowing of the sad ending. This unusual story of Viola's intertwined destinies and personal experiences promises exciting twists and turns and an unpredictable path in the world of the shadow of Veratu. Viola, despite the lack of blood ties in the Veratu family, stood out for her hard work and her extraordinary abilities. Her talents shed light on her family's heritage, but despite her accomplishments and successes, there was an emptiness in her soul. Her diligence was like a lamp in a dark night, shedding light on Viola's path in the Veratu family legacy. Her extraordinary abilities only emphasized her uniqueness in this complex family drama. However, despite all the accolades and successes, there was only emptiness in her inner world. This contrast between outer splendor and inner emptiness created a unique dynamic in Viola's story. Her life journey, filled with labors and accomplishments, still left a sense of unspeakable loss. The emptiness in Viola's soul created an interesting tension, a foreshadowing of the coming twists and turns in the fate of this unusual heroine in the world of the shadow of Veratu. While reading the novel, the protagonist felt truly sorry for Viola. Despite this, she was certain that if she had been in Viola's shoes, she would have been able to change the course of events and achieve a happy ending. This confidence could be the key reason for Viola's rebirth. The heroine of the novel, empathizing with Viola, felt deep pity for her fate. At the same time, her imagination was filled with confidence in her own strength and the possibility of changing the unhappy scenario. Perhaps it was this confidence and the desire to write a happy chapter in Viola's story that became the impetus for her rebirth. Thus, the heroine's internal conflict, consisting of empathy for Viola and the belief that she herself could have changed her fate, may have been the source that led to Viola's rebirth. This internal dynamic promises a fascinating plot development and reveals new aspects of the protagonist's personal aspirations in the world of Veratu's shadow. A sudden realization swept over Viola as she remembered that she was in the prologue of The Shadow of Veratu. That was the moment when Heroine had indoctrinated her with the laws of the Winter Castle. That familiar context made her memories resurface. Finding herself at the same plot point where her acceptance into the Veratu family began, Viola began to unravel the secrets of her past. As she remembered that Heroine had taken her from the slums, she realized that the reason was far more complex than she had thought. Her past echoed in her soul, and she remembered that her talents as an assassin had been the key that had opened the door to the Veratu family for her. Heroine saw her as more than just a lost girl, but as something more that could change their fates. In the original, Viola always listened to Duke Heroine in absolute silence, which constantly frustrated her as a reader. However, when she had gathered her strength and left the usual silence behind, she decided that it was time to show her strength and express her own feelings. Putting her hand to her chest with a smile that awakened in her eyes, Viola opened her mouth and asked, "Will you be my father now?" At that moment, her words rang out in the room where there was usually an impenetrable silence, piercing the familiar atmosphere. Viola not only expressed her determination, but also looked at the future with optimism. Géron, always so reserved and cold-blooded, responded to her with an understated affirmation that nevertheless carried a tinge of new understanding and rapprochement. This emotional moment promises a change in the relationship between Viola and Jaren, adding a touch of heartwarmth to their story in the cold world of Shadow of Veratu. Hearing the confirmation, Viola felt that her move was the right one. Even though she was the rightful heir in the novella, as the sole mistress of the Winter Castle, Viola did not seek strict conquest. It was more important to her to not just occupy the pinnacle of power, but to feel part of the real Veratu family. There was no desire in her soul to be merely the mistress of the castle. Viola longed for a much deeper connection. She wanted to feel that she was Jaren's daughter, not just by formal recognition, but by sincere recognition of Jaren's inner world. And now, hearing his words, Viola realized that her aspirations were understood and accepted. Now, knowing that Jaren considered her his daughter, Viola felt that she had found her place in the world of the Shadow of Veratu, where not only castles and power were important, but also warm ties with those around her. Suddenly, Viola, cleverly using the pretext of her knowledge of the Veratu family, stated emphatically that in a family that valued rationality and logic, she should be able to choose her own father. Her words resonated in the room, filling the air with confidence and some challenge. Viola, who usually preferred to operate in the shadows, was now coming to the forefront to express her beliefs. Her desire to choose her own father reflected not only a desire for self-determination, but also an intention to remain true to her beliefs. This unexpected request emphasized her strength and determination, even in family matters. The way Viola raised the issue gave her the character of a wise and rational strategist. Her words promised a change in the dynamics of relationships in the Veratu family, creating intrigue and emphasizing the complexity of her character in the world of Veratu's shadow. Hearing such statements, a butler with a couple of scars on his face said humbly but sternly, "My lady?" His words carried a subtle hint that Viola may have overstepped some boundaries. The scars on Carlton's face testified to his certain experience and hard fate, making his words even more meaningful. And noticing the carefully disguised signs of time on the butler's face, Viola instantly realized it was Carlton. His sternness and humility suggested that perhaps she had crossed some lines. However, as we learn in the following pieces of text, Viola had made the right decision, and Carlton, despite his outward strictness, must have approved of her determination. He emphasized, without saying a word too much, that politeness and respect for elders were an integral part of the Veratu family traditions. Viola was well aware, however, that Géron would not be able to resist such a provocative question. With determination in her eyes, she turned away, declaring that her desire to choose her father herself was not just a wish, but a natural selection in such a harsh family. The girl understood that in this world where force and logic ruled, showing strength in decision-making was the key to survival. Her words about natural selection carried not only confidence in her own strength, but also an understanding of the family dynamics of Veratu. At this point, Viola, being not just the heroine of the novella, but an active participant in her own destiny, showed that she was ready to go beyond tradition and shape her reality in the world of the Shadow of Veratu. Viola, aware of the values of rationality in the Veratu family, understood that she was entitled to the right to choose, and listening carefully to her words about natural selection, Géron, who showed a deep understanding of family traditions, gave her that choice. He asked her discreetly but with genuine interest if Viola wished to become his daughter. This moment was a turning point in their relationship. Géron, usually strict and inaccessible, opened the door to his soul, giving Viola not only a choice, but also a chance to become an indispensable part of his family. In response, Viola, with a sense of responsibility and determination, accepted the challenge, declaring her desire to become Géron's daughter. This moment promises important shifts in the dynamics of the Shadow of Veratu, where the power of rationality combines with the warmth of family ties to make their story richer and deeper. Viola replied that her desire was to become Geron's daughter, justifying her choice with an unexpected statement about his beauty. But behind this superficial reason, there was real sincerity. Geron was her favorite character in the novel. It was a moment when reality mixed with virtuality, and Viola seemed to be playing a part in the story she had previously read. Her response was not only sincere, but also unique in its own way. She, like a lord of cunning mysteries and inverted scenarios, provided Heron with something that even in his rational world defied logic. In this way, Viola brought her own mystery to the Viratu family dynamic in the world of the Shadow of Viratu. A sudden boldness swept over Viola as she spoke words filled with the purity of her heart. A spark of determination flashed through the light of her eyes as she declared that it was she, of all possible choices, who had chosen Geron to be her father. It was an expression of not just a desire, but a longing to belong, to be a part of something important and real. With her sweet smile like a ray of sunshine, Viola approached Geron, expressing her sincere desire to build a family. Her voice sounded like a muted melody filled with tenderness and hope. "I've always dreamed of a family," she whispered, like a delicate note in a mossy musical instrument. Geron, however, did not respond to her request in kind. A sinister smile that revealed the teeth of a hidden enemy broke the moment of sincerity. Viola, expecting warmth and acceptance, instead encountered coldness and rejection. That moment was the inflection point in her life, where innocent hopes met ruthless reality. Her eyes flashed with bewilderment, and her dreams of a family seemed like an illusion, blurred by the chilling wind of misunderstanding. Geron's sinister smile, like a chilling wind, penetrated to the very depths of Viola's soul. That moment proved to be a sudden twist that left her in a state of shock. Instead of a response to her frank desire to feel love from the man she had chosen as her father, she was met with ruthless indifference. Viola's heart sank as Geron, like a shadow, began to drift away, leaving her to stand in the void with sadness and disappointment. Her dream of a family was on the verge of being shattered, as if the winds of treason had torn away hope and thrown her into an abyss of dark doubt. Heron's words, noting that she had lasted a long time, sounded like a mockery of fate. It was a challenge thrown to her by fate that forced Viola to look at her strength and determination in the face of cold reality. There were uncharted territories of complex relationships and internal struggles ahead. Geron's first glimpse of this child was a shaky moment in a gray slum filled with the smell of loss and poverty. Viola, sitting alone in her rags, was a picture of lost childhood, her scarlet eyes standing out vividly against her purple hair. Viola's eyes, like a rare flower in a ruined garden, sparkled with the reflection of her inner light. This contrast between the brightness of her gaze and the grim surroundings of the slum emphasized her uniqueness, her ability to rise above the shadows of poverty. Geron may have sensed at that moment the mysterious appeal and mystery that framed this child. Her scarlet eyes were a point of light in his dark world, and that meeting gaze was the beginning of a story where contrasts unfolded like the pages of an old book, where every word carried with it unknown secrets. A bloody shard trembled in Viola's hands like a piece of dark mystery in her unbreakable hands. She might have witnessed the cruelty, seen the darkness that was creeping into her innocent world. That tiny glimpse into the girl's past revealed the drama merging with the red stream of life she was able to hold in her childish palms. 7 years of age seemed too tender for such frightening events. However, Viola's eyes could see the incredible resilience in her eyes, as if she already knew what fear and forced self-defense were, despite her young age. Her small body carried an unexpected strength capable of repelling an attack of wolf-like ferocity. This bloody shard became a symbol of her inner strength, hidden behind the innocent appearance of a 7-year-old girl. Viola, like a flower that survives in harsh conditions, has proven remarkably resilient to the dark currents of life. And in this story, full of mystery and danger, her childlike eyes pierced the darkness despite her youth. Geron felt the weight of misfortune like an invisible manticore looming over this child. In his eyes, Viola was like a fated star, shedding a shadow in its path. Seeing her as a child born under the star of misfortune, he saw her as a character from a bygone time, resurrected in someone else's destiny. Geron, a man with a rich past and a tenuous present, took charge of Viola with determination. He raised her from the slums as if she were under the seal of an ominous star mixed with a premonition of disaster. But behind this decision lay not only duty and care, but a pure interest in mysteries that might lead to unusual turns of events. Thus began an unusual bond between a man with a dark past and a girl who seemed to bear the weight of a star designed to bring misfortune. In this meeting of past and future, by the secret threads of fate, they began to weave a marvelous story, where every detail was the key to unraveling Viola's mysterious destiny. Carlton's sudden intervention interrupted Heron's immersion in the rippling ocean of his own thoughts. The topic Carlton brought forward opened a new chapter in their discussion, as if a fresh wind had entered the musty room, filling it with a fresh sigh. Carlton, with a sly smile on his lips, pointed out something unusual about Viola that defied ordinary explanation. The 7-year-old girl, like an old soul, sounded much older than her years in her conversation with Heron. Her words carried something profound, like wisdom acquired through centuries of life. Heroine, raised from his private musings, looked at Viola with renewed curiosity. Her speech and manner of expression were indeed out of keeping with her tender age. The mysterious threads of fate, weaving themselves around her, formed a portrait of an enigmatic personality, capable of an outstanding perception of the world for her age. Now there was another mysterious dimension to their story, where Viola's childhood was out of time and out of the midst. Viola's sudden rudeness in her conversation with the Duke caused Carlton to think suddenly. He noticed her strong character, which seemed to awaken from the magic that lurked in her soul. This girl, with the appearance of an angel, was, in fact, the possessor of a fiery temper capable of opposing even the highest officials. Carlton's inner monologue was mixed with emotion. At first glance, Viola's rudeness might have seemed inappropriate, but in her eyes he read courage and steadfastness. This act of force, performed against the backdrop of high titles and aristocratic pride, left behind an imprint that could not be ignored. A slight embarrassment pervaded his thoughts as he realized that despite her unusual character, it was hard not to fall in love with such a girl. There was something about her that went beyond the standard notions of well-bred children of the upper classes. Her character was a magnet that beckoned to him, calling for the discovery of her mysterious nature. At this time, in the privacy of his thoughts, Heron's mind flashed back to those moments when Viola, like a child, had demanded more than protection from him. He smiled, remembering her sweet insistence, like a little person with the look of an adult. The memory of her boldly expressing her feelings and asking for his love sounded in his heart like a melody of tenderness. These moments became a kind of key to her soul, opening the door to a world where even children can demand and appreciate something profound and incomprehensible. Jaren's smile, like a ray of sunshine, lit up his face. His eyes read not only the joy of memories, but also a sense of pride in the bold girl who dared to demand love in a world where warmth and care were so often forgotten. Along with the smile came the realization that Viola had come into his life not just as a child, but as a mysterious fragment that had transformed his gray everyday life into an exciting story. Viola, in the evening, paced her room with an invisible burden on her heart. 2 days in this world of the novella had seemed like endless whirlwinds of uncertainty. Like a caged bird, she was confronted by unknown forces holding her in this alien, real weave of words and events. The restlessness of her thoughts manifested itself in the disorderly dance of her steps. As a prisoner of time, she faced an irrepressible desire to return to her familiar world, where real footsteps sounded, not the whispered words of virtual pages. Viola probably had no idea what was going on in her life, and this uncertain state became a shadow over her soul. Every step she took in this alien world was like an attempt to solve a mystery, like running forward in a stream of unpredictable events. The dark room epitomized her uncertainty, and she kept walking, waiting for the day when the mysterious gate would bring her back to the place where the real footsteps would sound in her heart again. Viola's sudden realization of the possibility of rebirth, as in the worlds where the pages of novels are interwoven, was like opening a door in a labyrinth of plots and possibilities. This new dimension of her existence added a note of mystery and uncertainty to her days, as if the pages of the future of her life had not yet been fully revealed. However, in this world of literary change, she was faced with the fact that her eventual rebirth carried with it a dark shadow. A dystopian fantasy in which she becomes a murderous princess went against all her wishes. This image, intertwining beauty and deadly power, was a foreshadowing of the tragedy she could possibly bring. The dislike of this possibility was reflected in her eyes, as if Viola's bright eyes lit up with denial in the face of a dark scenario. That thought of the potential death of tens of thousands of people became a carrying wind, leaving a shadow in her wake in this unusual world. Now her fate was becoming a page in a novel where the scales between good and evil swung in her soul. Viola suddenly surged upward, as if an explosion of determination had erupted in her inner world. She realized that, already sucked into this novel, she needed to seize every moment to survive in a world where the Veratu family was becoming her new home and challenge. The energy of determination poured into her every step as she, filled with unwavering ambition, began to build her destiny in this unpredictable world. Viola realized that the Veratu family was not just a page in her novel, but the real edge of the world that she must master and embrace. The decision to survive in the Veratu family made her strong, like a fire simmering in her inner world. Like a catching wind, she waded into difficult relationships, ready to fight and change. This new twist in her story was a challenge she decided to take on with dignity and determination. Viola felt that at a key moment in her destiny, it was time to conquer her place in the Veratu family. She needed not just to survive in this world, but to belong, to be an integral part of this aristocratic, dynamic structure. Her heart was seething with unyielding determination to earn her place and become the first princess heiress. At that moment, she realized that it was necessary to win not only respect but also acceptance from the members of the Veratu family. Her steps became not only determined but as refined as a courteous dance at the balls of this high society. Viola accepted the challenge of maintaining a balance between ambition and respect for the traditions of this family. Thus, a new dream grew in her heart to become not just a character in their family history, but the fulfillment of her own hopes and desires. With every deed and word, she sought to solidify her position so that in their eyes she would be an integral part of the Veratu family, the first heiress princess worthy of her place in this world of nobility and intrigue. In the depths of her soul, Viola realized that despite her ambition and desire for acceptance in the Veratu family, she could not follow the path of the original Viola by causing the death of others. This sin of the past hanging over her present caused her overwhelming pain and fear. Instead of repeating the dark pages of the past, she decided to write her own story. It was a challenge that required her not only to avoid the road strewn with death, but also to create something new, filled with light and hope. However, in this world where every mistake could be her last, her heart beat in unison with anxious thoughts. The fear of the unknown and the possibility of making a mistake was like a black cloud shading her future. But the fire of determination burned in Viola's eyes, a fire that told her she was capable of doing something unique, even in the face of this dangerous and uncertain world. A sudden memory of her past life swept over Viola, like an inner rush of time entering her present. The memories of Han Aren, her previous identity, brought a note of melancholy and strength into her new life. It was the story of a girl who had gone through difficult moments, facing the loss of her mother and her father's abandonment. Han Aren's mother passed away, leaving her to face a difficult life alone. Her father, in his indifference, abandoned her, leaving her in medical school where she had to forge her own destiny. In this sudden flashback of the past, the unspoken emotions and faces of the people who had left a mark on her soul resounded in her heart. One day, feeling an inner clot of dark memories, Viola decided to climb to the roof, as if summoning death itself to meet her. She stood in front of the edge that overlooked the abyss, hoping that this bold step would help her overcome the shadows of the past and start a new chapter. Viola's gaze crossed with the eyes of death, and in that moment she realized that there was something more precious: her own life. Surprisingly, this act was a turning point in her destiny. As she discovered a new source of strength in herself, Han Aren began to cherish her life as if she had experienced every moment of it. This awakening period brought bright colors into her life. She began to make friends, build relationships, and strive for a brighter future. The courage she found on the roof became a beacon to guide her through the difficulties and darkness of the past. This is how Han Aren found meaning in each day, learning to appreciate life and bring light to her heart. She became the architect of her own destiny, filling it with new stories and hopes, ready for the challenges that the world of Veratu's shadow had in store for her. One day, just as Han Aren's second year was in full swing, something strange happened. She, sitting up at night in the college library, immersed in her study materials, suddenly felt sleep begin to take over her consciousness. Han Erin's eyes closed in exhaustion, and when she opened them again, a completely different world spread out before her, Viola's world. Once in the new reality, Han Aren realized that she had become a part of the Veratu family, and this fact enveloped her life in new shades. Surprisingly, the new life she was thrust into was harmonious and prosperous. Viola already had her own family and father, which was extremely strange and startling. Thus, despite the initial difficulties of adapting to Viola's body, Han Aren gradually realized that her new life was much better than her previous one. In the Veratu family, she found warmth, support, and understanding. This change in her existence was an unexpected gift that brought joy and peace to her days, and her heart was filled with gratitude for the unexpected turn of fate. Deciding that her new life with the Veratu family deserved a happy ending, Viola took up her pen, ready to create her own chapter in the story. She realized that changing the plot of the novel was not only her personal quest for happiness, but also an opportunity to influence her own destiny in this mysterious world. Viola wasn't just writing a new chapter, she was weaving the magical fabric of her happiness. She thought about every word, every emotion she wanted to experience in this story. Sitting in the comfort of her room in the castle of Veratu, Viola began to drift through story worlds, catching the metaphorical feathers of her thoughts. New scenes, dialogues, and plot twists slowly began to line up in her imagination, like a mosaic of the future that she was picking up crumbs. And realizing the importance of each word, Viola thought of a new title for the novella, a title that would be a reflection of her determination and pursuit of happiness in this world of change. It was her contribution to the fabric of reality, a fresh start given by fate. The memory of estimating the likelihood of her future in the Veratu family left incredible imprints in Viola's heart. Like a shadow, Jaren and Carlton's statistics about her chances of surviving to adulthood became an ominous backdrop to her new life. That number, a mere 10%, became more than a cold statistic. It permeated her every step like a silent reminder that the road to happiness in this family was strewn with difficulties. Viola felt as if she had to fight for every moment, as if trying to reverse a foregone conclusion. However, instead of giving in to despair, that memory fueled the fire of determination in her. She wasn't going to become a mere statistic. Instead, Viola decided to use that 10% as fuel for her aspiration. It became not just a number, but a challenge she took on to show that the strength of her determination could change even the most predetermined path. While Viola inwardly confronted her statistics, Jaren and Carlton, immersed in their analytical reasoning, brought new numbers into play. In the new story where Viola sought happiness and change, her probability of survival rose to 40%. This twist was a sign of change of sorts. Perhaps Viola's heart, though it had accepted the challenge of 10%, was now filled with a new hope. The number 40% became her new wing on which she could soar into a bright future. Jaren and Carlton, although analytical in their approach to the situation, may have picked up on the changes in Viola's soul at this point. The probability estimate not only reflected statistical data, but also became a reflection of changes in her decisions and aspirations. Thus, the 40% became a symbol of new hope that markedly changed the dynamics of relationships in the Veratu family and became a bright signal of possible happy developments in the story. Jaren Verrett's God's eye ability opened to him the secret corners of human thoughts. At the moment when Viola inwardly dared to express her sincere desire to become his daughter, Jaren, thanks to his gift, penetrated to the very depths of her thoughts. The eye of God revealed to Heron not only the words but also the true feelings. Thus he learned that there was a spark burning in Viola's heart, ready to belong to the Verrat family. This discovery was like an invisible bridge that connected the two worlds, his ability to read minds and Viola's sincere feelings. At that moment, Jaren felt that the magic of the eye of God not only allowed him to understand those around him, but also became a tool for understanding and connecting with those who had touched his life. Thus, through the secret strings of Viola's thoughts, Jaren sensed the girl's true desire to belong to this family, and this became a new chapter in their relationship. A sense of wonder enveloped Jaren as his eye of God revealed to him the secrets of Viola's heart. The ability allowed him to penetrate the most intimate corners of her thoughts, and he found that his presence aroused more than awe or respect. It was like an unexpected discovery in an encrypted book, where each page became a kind of message. As he gazed into Viola's thoughts, Jaren felt her heart responding to his personality as if it were a long-awaited arrival. It was more than just attraction. It was a meeting of two souls destined to cross paths. Surprise mingled with tenderness in Jaren's heart. He realized that Viola had seemingly always held the warmth of anticipation within her, as if her heart knew the importance of this meeting beforehand. It was a moment when the ability of the eye of God became not only an exploration of another's thoughts, but a doorway to the mysterious harmony blossoming between them. At an unexpected moment, Heron, using his power, gave Carlton an order to put Zeno as a butler to Viola. Carlton, not hiding his displeasure, objected, considering it a waste of time. Garen, with confidence in his decision, explained that meeting Zenon might prove to be a necessary element in Viola's life. Perhaps he saw something in Zenon that could help Viola in her pursuit of happiness. Using his ability, he probably saw something deeper in this change than just a change in butler staff positions. Despite his objections, Jaron insisted on his decision, emphasizing the importance of this step. This decision was a kind of jolt to Viola's story, leaving a mystery as to how Zeno entering her life would affect her fate in this wonderful world of the Veratu family. Knowing the future foreshadowed by the novella's plot cast a shadow of uncertainty over Viola. When Zeno, who had killed 20 great knights, entered her life, he brought with him not only his strong mark on history, but also an unpredictable dynamic. Zeno was a tireless tester whose demands were like invisible threads whose fabric weaved through her every move. Zeno's exacting nature became an invisible hammer that molded the shape of her character. He tested her talents without recognizing them, as if each victory was just the next step toward their recognition. Viola, aware that this testing was an integral part of her plot, tried not to succumb to the pressure and continued to press forward with tenacity. Thus, even as Viola became famous for her unique abilities, Zeno did not back down, emphasizing his role as a guardian to test her mettle. This dynamic brought a mysterious element to their relationship, revealing the difficult tests Viola was about to undergo in this new, untold twist of her fate. Anxiety about the future lingered in Viola's soul like a dark shadow of uncertainty. At this moment, when her heart was full of doubt, a sudden knock on the door broke the silence. Quickly abandoning her musings, Viola headed for the door, eager to see what lurked behind it. But the door had not yet opened, and her heart beat with increased intensity, anticipating the exciting news. At that moment, a messenger entered the room, bringing news that was far from expected. "Zenon will be assigned to you as your butler," the message sounded, and Viola felt her pulse quicken. The news of Zenon's arrival, embodying not only a long past but also difficult trials, made her eyes fill with a mishmash of emotions ranging from worry to determination. Viola's fate, like her room, remained a closed book, and Zenon's arrival promised to add uncharted twists and turns to that plot. Now Viola was challenged to face the trials and changes this new, mysterious character would bring to her story within the Veratu family. Viola's heart beat with indefatigable force as she, disturbed by the news, decided to grab the door herself and try to open it. However, the handle seemed to be designed for adults and she had to stretch to reach it. The helplessness of this moment only added to her anxiety, making her feel as if her fate was already slipping out of her control. When the door finally opened, Viola was surprised to see a messenger with the news, but Zeno himself was standing behind the door, as if he were the unexpected embodiment of the news. But it was Zeno himself standing behind the door like the unexpected embodiment of the news. This unexpected turn of events stunned Viola. Zeno, standing in front of her, turned this moment into more than just a transfer of information. His presence created an aura of mystery and importance around him. Viola felt that this visit promised not only a change in her life, but also an opportunity to uncover another chapter of the mystery hidden within the walls of Castle Veratu. Zeno, with a thin smile, declared that opening doors was the butler's job, and now Viola was obliged to give him orders. At first glance, the words sounded like an ordinary division of duties, but something in Viola's heart whispered that there was more behind that smile. She wasn't ready to trust Zenon at his word, however. There was a flicker of doubt in her eyes, and she sensed that he carried more than just the role of butler. Perhaps he was testing her reactions to situations like this. For Viola, this meeting was not only a change of status within the castle, but also a test of her sense of wariness. She realized that every move in this castle, in this story, could be seen and appreciated. Thus, her relationship with Zenon was becoming an intriguing dynamic where every look, word, and action could have an impact on her path in this mysterious world of Veratu. Viola noted, with a look of arrogance on her face, that she didn't need any guidance from Zeno. She stated with conviction that she was capable of handling family matters on her own without needing his advice. Zeno, for his part, responded with a subtle hint that she had misinterpreted his earlier words. Politely apologizing, he tried to clarify that his intentions were far from testing her abilities. Despite her apology, Viola maintained her doubts. Her incredulous look said that she still thought Zeno was testing her, deliberately questioning her abilities. This tense moment in their relationship involves not only Viola's pride, but also the complex family dynamics in which each member of the Veratu family strives to prove their worth and influence. Viola, with evident displeasure, expressed her position. The butler was to be merely a prompt for her mistress, not to impose her own instructions. She was asserting her independence and determination to make her own decisions in family affairs. In response to her statement, Zeno simply nodded, remaining calm and indifferent. The simplicity of her answer only irritated Viola more. She could sense that her words were not resonating with Zenon, and it irritated her. Perhaps there was more to this simple gesture of Zeno's nod, but Viola, immersed in family intrigue and her own ambitions, was not about to give in easily. In every such moment, the viewer is confronted with the drama that permeates the plot of The Shadow of Veratu, making it all the more compelling and mysterious. To survive in the Veratu family, Viola must not only stay afloat in family intrigue, but also actively monitor the actions of each family member. In this cold winter castle, where rationality and logic are valued, maintaining her reputation and power becomes vital. The original Viola from the novella, who subdued everyone with her power and ambition, suffered heavy losses, losing everything around her. Now, before our heroine is open the way to survival in this cruel family environment, she is forced to make difficult decisions, balancing on the edge between subordination and independence. Her desire to crush her rivals must not lead to the same thing that happened to the original Viola. That's her challenge, to maintain power without losing her humanity. Viola, realizing the importance of support in this cold and unpredictable castle, decided to wisely put all her efforts into winning the likes and affections of every member of the Veratu family. First on her list was Zenon, the loyal butler, an important element that could be a necessary trump card in the cards of her success. Viola realized that having a devoted butler by her side was not just a luxury, but an essential element in her rise to the top of the family hierarchy. The savvy Zeno had important information and influence that could help her in her quest for success. In this complex interaction between Viola and Zenon, the viewer will discover intrigue, tactical maneuvers, and moments when their paths may cross or diverge. Not only does her own survival depend on it, but also her ability to stand at the helm of family affairs while remaining true to her convictions. In this cold castle of the Veratu family, the butler's fate is determined not only by loyalty, but also by the outcome of internal family battles. Leaving the castle, the butler whose master has either died or lost in family intrigues is forced into exile, losing his former position, while the one whose master has risen to the pinnacle of power gains unlimited dominance. Viola, cunning and ambitious, realizes that in this realm of volatility, her success and influence are closely tied to who is around her. That is why she seeks to recruit Zeno to her side. A powerful butler who can support her, she sees in him not only a loyal ally, but also the key to her rise to the top of the family hierarchy. In this intertwining of the fates of butlers and masters, the viewer will discover the dramatic nature of the events, remaining in anticipation of how Viola will use this strategic moment to rise to the top in the power struggle at Winter Castle. Viola, with confidence and expressiveness, stated to Zenon her informed view of the important role of butlers in the Veratu family. Emphasizing that she was well aware of their influence and importance, she resolutely opened the door herself, eager to face her butler. Zeno, in response to this display of cleverness and eagerness to know the inner details of family affairs, knelt down with a smile on his face. With a slight sneer, he invited Viola to come closer, showing his face closer. There was a note of mockery in his smile, but also a sense of respect for her cleverness. This was the moment when Viola's intelligence and dexterity were appreciated, and Zeno, being an important player in this family game, expressed his appreciation before her intelligence. In this castle, where family interactions are filled with secrets and a crushing cold, Viola and Zeno begin a dance of wits and power intrigue that makes the plot of The Shadow of Veratu all the more fascinating and mysterious. Viola, showing her frankness, made no secret of her feelings and admitted that she liked Zenon. However, the tone of that confession was filled not only with simple sympathy, but also with interest in what Zeno felt for her despite his possible faults. Zeno responded to her revelation with an intriguing insistence on clarifying whether she liked him despite his blunders. Viola, with uncommon wisdom, pointed out that Zenon's mistake did not make him a bad butler. Her view of him overcame formalities and external circumstances, questioning not only Zenon's professionalism, but also his sincerity. For Viola, it's not so much words as attitude that matters more, and this dialogue becomes the key to their mutual understanding and power dynamics in the family intrigues of the Winter Castle. Zeno's gaze remained frozen, filling the room with a heavy atmosphere. The emotion on his face read clearly, surprise mixed with a certain amount of sadness. In that moment, he realized that Viola seemed to have been born under an unlucky star, and her fate was imbued with a dark shadow. Viola's violet eyes, normally reflecting her gentleness and poise, now turned scarlet, as if reflecting the inner fire of anger. Zeno realized that those eyes were the windows to her soul, and their scarlet light became visible with every display of real anger. That moment slowed time, as if a mysterious energy hovered in the room. Zeno, gazing intently at Viola, sensed that she carried something far more powerful than just a member of the Veratu family. In this intertwining of feelings and the mystery of Winter Castle, Zeno's gaze pierced the very essence of the mystery Viola brings with her. Although the violet light of her eyes didn't change this time, Zeno could already feel the mysterious power that her anger carried. The moment Viola's eyes remained the same, he felt the otherworldly energy of her resentment fill the air. It was a moment when even the lack of visible change in her appearance could not hide the depth of what was boiling inside. Zeno realized that her anger was not just a display of emotion, but something far more mysterious and forceful that could tip the scales in their family intrigue. It was an invisible force urging him to beware and recognize the power of her inner fire. Astonishment slowly crossed Zeno's face as he realized that a girl so young seemed to already have control over her urge to kill. In her eyes, as if obscured by a dark veil, he caught a glimpse of something that made her unusual and mysterious. He was sure that behind that gentle guise lay a power that could control the very essence of her desires. Suddenly Viola, as if she'd guessed his thoughts, announced that she already had her first assignment for Zeno. This unexpected turn of events amazed him. How so, after all, it had only been 10 minutes since they had met. Such determination and ability to act quickly in the world of the Veratu family's intrigue caused Zeno not only surprise, but also a strange trepidation at the coming changes Viola would bring in her wake. The impression on Zeno was heightened when he realized that Viola required no explanation of the harsh laws of the Veratu family. He appreciated her ability to understand how the intricacies of the hierarchy functioned in this cold castle. Her eyes seemed to reflect not only the natural charm of a young girl, but also a deep understanding of the world of power and intrigue that surrounded them. She seemed to already know her place and what she should do in this context. This sudden show of determination and willingness to take action made Zeno wonder how willing she was to plunge into these dangerous waters of family affairs. At the same time, it opened his eyes to the fact that Viola was not just a novice at this game, but someone who seemed to know how to play it at the highest level. Viola's sudden determination created a genuine tension in the room. She cleared her throat as if preparing for an important statement and readily ordered Zenon to carry out the unusual assignment. At that moment, a mysterious confidence flashed in her eyes, as if she were familiar with the behind-the-scenes of dark family practices. The order to bring the bird feather and red frog poison made Zeno feel the growing maelstrom of change in their home. His curiosity and anxious anticipation suggested that this seemingly simple request of Viola's might have a deeper meaning, full of hidden intrigue and secret arrangements. Everything stood still for a moment, as if a mysterious foreshadowing of new events at the castle of the Veratu family was suspended in the air. Zeno answered Viola's unusual request with a smile, clarifying that red frog venom was a powerful neurotoxin. There was not only a cold-blooded confidence in his words, but also a certain intrigue in his voice, as if he was hinting at the deeper meaning of this assignment. Viola, for her part, sensed Zeno's keen interest in the assignment. Her skill at creating cryptic inquiries seemed to have caught Zeno's attention, and he was ready to unravel her secrets with passion and a thirst for new discoveries. In this dialogue, the space between words was full of unspoken undertones and incredible excitement, creating an atmosphere of exciting intrigue in the room. In the silence, broken only by Viola's soft breathing, she suddenly asked Zeno to repeat his role as butler. Her voice was mysteriously demanding, as if she were testing him. Zeno, without losing his composure, said it was his duty to follow and support the princess. In response, Viola, holding back her inner steadfastness, only told Zeno to simply carry out his duties in silence. At this point, the room felt as if the secret threads of power and dependence had begun to intertwine tightly. Viola's words carried a sternness but also a commanding determination that broke the usual balance between the butler and his mistress. They created a new dynamic in which every word and action could affect the delicate fabric of family relationships in the Winter Castle. Zeno stood up, his movements calm and determined. He stated that he could bring everything he needed in just 12 minutes. At that moment, his confidence and dedication to his duties became apparent. Viola, sitting in the shadow of his mysterious authority, watched him with an attentive gaze, as if realizing that it was in this short period of time that many secrets and clues could be hidden. The tension of anticipation hung in the room, as if every second was a clue to the unfolding scenario of family intrigue in the castle of the Veratu family. As soon as Zenon left the room, Viola exhaled with relief. The tension that had been clenching her like invisible fetters of power began to slowly relax. Now, alone, she could cast off the mask of confident aristocrat she had unwittingly put on when confronted by Zenon. It was a role she had to play to maintain her place in this cold castle. The moment the door closed behind Zenon, Viola felt her shoulders released from an invisible burden. She could rest, stop pretending, and return to herself for a while. This small snippet of time allowed her to be not only a princess, but a woman hiding many complex shades of herself. As promised, exactly 12 minutes later, Zeno returned, surprising Viola with his incredible precision and efficiency. He had in his hands all the necessary items she had requested, and even the paper, as if he had foreseen that every tiny detail might be important in this family intrigue. Zeno's gaze, cool and attentive, met Viola's dark eyes as if he were reading her mind as he prepared to fulfill her next assignment. That moment when he held out all the items and paper to her was not only an act of devotion, but a demonstration of his ability to adapt to change. Viola realized that in this game, Zeno could prove to be her indispensable ally, ready to follow her into the world of intrigue and mystery of the Veratu family. Praising Zeno for his speed and accuracy in completing his errand, Viola, with a slight nod of thanks, ordered him to leave. Zeno, without the slightest sign of displeasure or surprise, politely left the room, leaving Viola alone with her thoughts and secrets. Viola, feeling the freedom of returning to her desk, ran to it as if her steps were a release from her apparent role as an aristocrat. Seated at her desk, surrounded by papers and quills, she began her own game of intrigue. In the world of Winter Castle's mysteries and family secrets, she was the central figure, and this moment was her time of power and control. The next day was going to be a challenge for Viola, as she was to meet the fifth prince, Vaikin Veratu. He had been trained in the art of assassination since childhood and had never felt remorse, and this meeting promised to be more than just a polite exchange of words. Viola had the necessary preparation to enter this unpredictable ball between guile and power. Shutting herself away in her room, she immersed herself in a world of strategies and tactics, pondering how to ensure her advantage in this dangerous game. With each passing moment, she became imbued with the complex intrigues that bound her to the Veratu dynasty. In this high-stakes game, every detail mattered, and Viola was ready to use her strengths and skills to emerge victorious from this delicate dance of fate. Viola's attention is riveted on the poison that lies before her. Her dark eyes glide over the outline of the container, and her mind drifts into a world of thought. The mysterious vial appears to her not only as a deadly agent, but also as a tool that could change the outcome of the game in her family's castle. Her reflections reflect the internal battle between the desire to survive and the inevitable price to be paid. The poison becomes a symbol of her determination, her willingness to go to the extreme in this dangerous world of intrigue. In this moment, faced with a choice, she realizes that the poison is not just a substance, but the key to her survival in a game where every move has deadly consequences. Viola walked down the silent corridor, tension in the air accompanying her every step. She realized that she would soon meet the one who would be her main rival in this complex game of power. Ahead of her was the meeting with Viken, a true assassin who mastered the art of death. Viola's heart was beating harder, and her thoughts were filled with dangerous secrets and strategies. She knew that she could not relax in the face of Viken, that every moment of this encounter could bring not only a threat, but also an opportunity to reverse fate. Determination and wariness flickered in her eyes as if she was ready to face herself in the mirror of the dark side of family intrigue in Winter Castle. Viken Viratu entered the room, only a year older than Viola. His 8 years seemed a strange contrast between his young age and the atmosphere of family intrigue. There was a sly gleam in his eyes, as if the 8-year-old assassin had already learned to read the secret schemes of the adult world. He instantly, without any preamble, declared that Viola did not deserve to be his sister. This phrase, thrown with such ease as lightning in a dark night, created an audible wave of tension in the room. Viola, facing her chief rival, felt that this meeting would be a point of no return, a fracture in their relationship, where words became weapons and every phrase an arrow aimed at the heart of the family secrets of Chateau Viratu. Viola did not like the way Viken immediately came with a claim, but she recognized that his feelings and views on the situation were completely different from her own. This tension-filled encounter revealed the profound differences in their perceptions and understanding of family dynamics. The moment Viken's words pierced the air, Viola suppressed her inner storm of indignation and raised her eyebrows resolutely, answering his challenge with dignity. This was no mere conversation between brother and sister, but a veritable duel of wits within the confines of Castle Viratu, where everyone had to fight for their role and recognition. The reality was that Viken had always felt envious of his older siblings. He saw them interacting with their peers, sharing joys and worries with those who grew up with them. While they were all in the same age group, Viken remained the only child in the Viratu family. This feature of his position in the family was always central to his thoughts and feelings. And so, when 7-year-old Viola was adopted, the sudden change in circumstances caused Vikina extreme joy. In this event, he saw not only the arrival of a peer, but also the opportunity to finally share his childhood self with someone close to him. This radical change in family dynamics awakened Vikina's sense of belonging and the possibility of not being the only child in the Viratu household. In the castle of Viratu, Viken, eager to uncover Viola's secrets, turned to his mother in search of answers. But the answers he received turned out to be like a chilling torrent of disappointment. The mother, as if the embodiment of old prejudices, looked at Viola with contempt. She declared dryly and sternly that Viola was unworthy to be Wichan's sister, for she was only a commoner, alien to even a drop of Viratu's blood. These words were like an oppressive shadow that swallowed up the hopes of a possible union of the two worlds. Viken felt his mother's prejudice and disbelief creating a wall between him and Viola. But at the same time, a fire of determination flashed in his eyes. Perhaps in this new challenge he would find the strength to change his destiny and Viola's. With a slight shiver of annoyance, Viken made a decisive choice. It was impossible to go to greet Viola. Discontent was reflected on his face, and he could feel his inner rebellion struggling against well-mannered manners. However, his mother, savoring the moment, had to remind him of his role in this castle. With maternal arrogance, she declared that Viken, on the contrary, should approach Viola and show her her place. At that moment, it was as if a tension hung in the air, a clash between Viken's individuality and the demands of his status in the Viratu family. It was a test not only for Viola, but also for Viken, who may have already sensed that his future was not what he had envisioned. Inspired by his mother's admonition, Viken made the decision to show Viola how bossy and fearsome he could be. This decision was a kind of test for him, a step into the unknown, where he tried to find his place in the family hierarchy. In the original novel, Viola, underestimating Viken's aggression, misjudged his intentions, leading her to point her dagger at him. This moment became a mirror reflecting the eternal enmity and strained relationship between the two. an impressive turn of events that left its mark on their fates. At the moment when Viken was expressing his words, Viola made an unusual decision. She decided not to follow the original's example and not to get involved in a fruitless confrontation. With the ease of a lady, she let his words pass over her ears as if they had no meaning. Viola's smile was a kind of reply, devaluing all the negativity that might have touched her heart. Nonchalantly picking up her teacup, she continued her tea drinking as if nothing had happened. This act made Viola stand out, making her figure someone who knows how to maintain her mental firmness in the face of challenges. Viken was shocked that Viola didn't react with anger, which completely ruined his expectations and plans. His mocking provocation to provoke her anger and fear appeared as if it had been discarded. His face reflected bewilderment and even some concern, for he had not foreseen this turn of events. Viola, maintaining her composure, raised the bar of firmness, which made her response even more powerful. Her ability to maintain emotional balance in the face of challenges brought a new element to their relationship, and may have embarrassed Viken in front of her family. Turning to her directly, Viken asked why Viola wasn't angry, convinced that she must be too stupid to realize how he was insulting her. His eyes read confidence in his ability to suppress her, prompting her to react. He couldn't understand why his provocations didn't resonate with her. In response to his question, Viola calmly set down her cup, as if to emphasize that she was willing to make concessions. Her answer took an unexpected turn that gave the situation an air of mystery. Viken may have felt that his perception of Viola was being questioned, and this added a new complexity to their relationship. Suddenly, Viken felt the tension in the air, as if anticipating something unusual. Without warning, a sharp feather whistled past his cheek, creating a slight sense of menace. This moment, as if time had slowed down, gave the events a mysterious tinge. Perhaps it was merely a harbinger of something more significant, but Viken tensed, aware that the situation around him was beginning to change. The sharp feather, like a warning, brought a dramatic element to the situation, a foreshadowing of potential changes in their world. 8-year-old Viken, bred to be a ruthless killer, was in surprise when the scratch from a feather that flew by appeared on his skin. He slowly touched that light mark as if assessing its structure and significance. At the same moment, his eyes sparkled, reflecting unexpected delight. After only a moment, however, Viken rapturously extolled the accuracy of that pen. His perception had transformed from initial surprise to complete admiration. Though the small scratch seemed barely noticeable, to him it became more than just a mark on his skin. The silhouette of the 7-year-old assassin was pervaded by a rapturous appreciation for skill, even in such small things. Outwardly, Viola remained confident, as if nothing could shake her. But inside, her soul was a mix of emotions, regret at being in this situation at all, mixed with relief that the feather had flown past her face and only grazed her cheek. After all, in the next second, that feather could have been a threat to her eye. Such a moment was for Viola a mixed experience of fear and gratitude for her good fortune. At the same moment, Viken, changing his emotional palette again, brought his bloodshot eyes to the scratch and asked insistently if it should be taken as a warning. His mood fluctuated between threat and interest, creating a mysterious aura of unpredictability around him. Viola, despite her outward confidence, knew inwardly that her adventure in this castle was at the intersection of uncharted dangers and mysterious forces. Suddenly, Viken blossomed into an infectious smile again, delightedly stating that it was a perfect warning that brought its share of excitement to the moment. He savored the energy around him, as if the scratch had become their secret code, opening the door to something unknown. With these words, he suddenly offered Viola a hug, extending his arms toward her. There was a strange combination of delight and playfulness in his invitation, as if he saw it as more than a gesture of friendship. Viola, faced with this unusual offer, felt her confidence begin to blur with excitement and curiosity at the unknown. Viola, in her inner struggle between mercy and vigilance, felt that Viken was making a positive impression on her. The temptation to hug this sweet boy flashed in her eyes, but reason told her that in this cold castle, even such an innocent gesture could have its dark undertones. She held her emotions in check, remaining wary despite Viken's apparent friendliness. She knew that in the Viratu family, a hug hid not only warmth and support, but also a careful analysis of bodily characteristics to identify weaknesses. Viola realized that in this cold and intriguing world she should keep her sense of security paramount. With sadness in his eyes, Viken asked if Viola was going to hug him. In that moment, faced with the choice between caution and the desire to be true to Viratu, Viola felt that what mattered most in that moment was humanity and the desire to resolve emotional tension. Determined to do the unexpected, she gave in to the urge and embraced Viken. Her embrace was not only an act of kindness, but also a kind of symbol of her willingness to enter into this complex family relationship. In that moment, she felt how the world of Viratu, full of mystery and danger, could also possess moments of true humanity. With a smile, Viken admitted that he liked Viola. In the same instant, the aura around him changed, as if instantly shifting from cordial friendliness to something darker and more mysterious. Looking into her eyes, Viken suddenly proposed a contest, on the verge of something unimaginable, a contest to see which of them would die first. This unexpected turn made Viola even more wary. Her eyes flashed with bewilderment, and her mind raced to figure out how serious this proposal was. In the world of Viratu, even the game of death held some mystery, and Viola realized that she had a decision to make that would affect her future in this mysterious castle. In Viken's arms, Viola felt his strength and unpredictability. As their bodies came together in contact, she pondered how dangerous this young rival could be to her. It was clear to her that simply pushing Wiccan away was not the solution. His strength and determination portended a difficult challenge unless she found a way to convince him. With that thought in her mind, Viola tried to pick up on a weakness in Viken's owl, something she could use to win him over to her side. She realized that by not finding common ground with this enigmatic boy, she could become the object of his ambition to pursue her for murder. Viola decided that in this dangerous game, it was best to play it on her own terms. In her thoughts, Viola couldn't help but complain about Viken's prolonged embrace, which, despite its strength, was beginning to seem excessively long. There were whispers of discontent in her inner world, but she remained faithful to her decision. Suddenly, Zeno appeared at that moment. His appearance loomed like a shadow in the air, adding more tension to the situation. Viola felt her body tense even in Wiccan's embrace, preparing for what might happen. A moment of bewilderment and worry flashed in her eyes, for Zeno's arrival promised new mysteries and possible twists and turns in this unpredictable world of Viratu. With a mysterious look, Zeno brought a new nuance to their complicated relationship. He stated that the Duke was apparently not indifferent to what was going on, and gave Viken only 10 days. During that time, the boy must refrain from touching Viola. This announcement added a drop of intrigue and mystery to the already tense atmosphere around them. Viola, feeling excited and even somewhat relieved at the time constraint, couldn't help but think about how these 10 days would change their relationship. A ray of hope flashed in her eyes, but she realized that the time limit was just one more mystery in their complicated journey through the world of Viratu's shadow. Vicenus, with a touch of curiosity and fearlessness, dared to ask what would happen if he decided to waive this temporary restriction. In response to his question, Zeno, keeping his cool, told him that in that case he would have to report everything that was happening to Heroine. This information added a new level of responsibility and importance to the issue of temporary abstinence, emphasizing that this entire castle was filled with not only internal intrigue, but external control as well. Viola, standing between these two mysterious figures, realized that their every move was now being evaluated with special importance, and her stay here turned out to be not just a complicated family drama, but a kind of chess game where the stakes were high. Zeno's words revealed new aspects of his role in this castle. He admitted that he was not just a butler, but a personal butler, informant, and overseer of Viola. His voice sounded cold-blooded, like a man accustomed to running errands with precision. The reason for this supervision was announced. Viola was behaving too calmly for her 7 years. All this caused confusion for Viken, who argued that such information should be kept secret. Zeno, however, blithely stated that he had no orders to keep this information secret. Thus, the picture was becoming more and more confusing, and Viola realized that there were many complex relationships and secrets lurking beneath that cold facade of the castle. Zeno's words about information devoid of secrecy caused Viken to become agitated and irritated. The inner fire in him began to dissipate, and his usual confidence was disturbed. At that moment, unable to resist, he resolutely announced that he would leave after all. The emotions surging in his blood made him make a turbulent decision, reflecting his inner conflict and dissatisfaction with the mysteries and contradictions surrounding him in this mysterious castle. Suddenly, Viken, gaining a bloodthirsty look, placed his hand with some guile on Viola's shoulder. In that mysterious moment of farewell, he uttered words that caused her heart to swoon. At first casually, as if under the influence of some obscure force, he called her sis, but then corrected himself by calling her victim. At that moment, the words sounded like a foreshadowing of a dark farewell. In the next second, Viken suddenly collapsed. The poison of the red frog, the neurotoxin that until that moment had seemed to be but a shadow in the mystery, had begun its effect. This unexpected turn of events broke the fragile harmony of the moment of farewell and reminded him that in this castle, even the most innocent gestures could turn into deadly plots. Stunned and under the influence of the neurotoxin, Viken began to complain of dizziness. His gaze, recently still full of determination, was now cloudy and restless. His head, as if confused in a fog, was unable to perceive his surroundings. Viola, witness to this unexpected turn, felt the world around them become even more mysterious and dangerous. Viken, the boy with whom she had just shared the mysterious moments of farewell, now lay at her feet, subject to the effects of the poison. The unexpected shadow of death loomed over their story, and Viola was alone with these complicated feelings, immersed in a castle of mystery and danger. As Viken lay stunned at her feet, Viola, maintaining her outward firmness, issued a decisive command to Xenon to carry Viken's body away. This command was not only an act of compassion for the boy, but also a necessity to avoid unnecessary questions and notes in this mysterious castle. Zeno, for his part, praised Viola's actions, seeing something in her that made her stand out from the crowd. He expressed the opinion that if Viola had wanted to, she could not only carry Viken's body away, but also decide his fate in a more extreme way. There was not only an acknowledgement of power in his words, but also some warning that Viola, once in this world of mystery and intrigue, should be wary and cautious in her steps. Zeno, in his cold style, interrupted the silence by asking if Viola had achieved Viken's downfall with the very poison he had brought. Viola nodded in response to that question, feeling her shoulders slump slightly under the weight of the answer. She hoped that this brief insinuation would be enough and Zeno would not continue his questioning. Viola realized that the information about the poison she had used was known to her from the novella she was currently in. Nevertheless, she chose to keep that fact a secret. This was another moment where the boundary between reality and the worlds of her imagination was beginning to melt away, and every step required her to be careful and able to hide her sources of knowledge. The next moment, when Viola had hoped the questions were over, Zeno suddenly asked her to ask him a question. This unexpected turn of events made her freeze, as if time had slowed its run. Viola felt something unusual rising in the air, and the fear that Zeno had guessed some detail swept over her. She remained in a stupor, her gaze seeming to pierce the void in search of an answer. She realized in that moment that even in this castle, where intrigue and secrets were in the air, she had to balance her own secrets and mysteries, wary of what might surface. Viola, feeling Zeno's scrutinizing gaze on her, decided to answer his question with feigned insolence. She said that she would answer the question only if it was interesting enough. This answer was a kind of game, an attempt to evade possible interrogation and keep control of the situation. Zeno, however, took an unexpected turn despite her feigned insolence. He crouched down on his knee and with a smile on his face asked why Viola had allowed Viken to embrace herself. This question revealed another layer of complex relationships in this castle where even the smallest details could have deep meaning. Zeno's question as to why Viola had allowed Viken to hug herself was unexpected and surprising to the girl. Her expectations had been set in a different direction, and this twist caused some confusion. At a moment when the answer should have been as cryptic and cunning as the question itself, Viola felt that real uncertainty might flicker beneath her brazen mask.